Hey, what's up? This is Paul Solt from Super Easy Apps, and welcome to another speed coding session. I wanted to give a rundown of what I've accomplished so far in PhotoTable. I'm spending a little bit more time than I wanted to spend, but there's just so many things that I wanted to fix, and I'm kind of a completionist. There was a ton of compiler warnings, and I really wanted to whittle those down a little bit. It was driving me a little bit crazy. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I've done. Let me just show off the app. So I've got this on my iPad right now. I'm just going to tap on some of these buttons. I updated the popovers. I'm not limiting the size right now. Ideally, I'd want these to be self-sizing, but this logic doesn't really have a whole lot of auto layout in it. So this came out in 2012, right when auto layout came out. So we didn't adopt auto layout for any of the layout stuff. So it's just all traditional layouts. I did update to use these new pop-up buttons with the UI menu bar buttons so that I can choose photos from PhotoKit. I updated this so that I can do ordered. Before I had it so it was unordered, but ordered makes a whole lot more sense for a slideshow if you want to sort of create some content that actually makes sense together. So I have my car in the shop, but I got a rental Subaru Ascent while I waited for them to fix the air conditioning. And so I can just go ahead and add a couple photos to this album. Those will slide onto the screen, and you can sort of see that car. If I don't want them, I can go in here to manage. I still need to fix up that screen, but I changed it so that it's not limiting the size again because we really want to take up more space. So that also meant that now I have some more work to do if I want to clean this up so it looks nice. I have static sizes because when this app came out, there was only one size of iPhone, and it made sense to always have the popovers be that width, but now we have wider iPhones. So that's a change that I didn't want to make, but I was like, I just got to get this in here. This is not self-sizing right now, and I think what I'm going to do is in another video, I'm going to actually rewrite this whole screen for album settings in Swift UI. So that's going to be something that we refactor and then reinsert. I want to create an interface that I can conform to and just make sure that I can just hot swap the two things. So I'll have a little tutorial on how to do that with Swift UI. This work session, I did add my first Swift class to this. So I had to add the Objective-C header and start exposing things with that. So that was a cool change. And I fixed all of the warnings about UI popovers in my code. And then I updated one of my dependencies. I use MBProgressHUD. I updated that. It's just sort of in the project via source. I'm not using any dependency tracking, so I just replaced it. And I had to change some of the build settings, so you'll see that in this video. I'll call that out. So these popovers all got updated. If I hit add photos here, that was the big thing that was hanging me up before. I wasn't sure how to handle this situation, so I decided I'm just going to do the popover button, and I do this on iPhone and iPad. This one required a lot more plumbing, so you see that in the beginning of the video. I had to create a delegate protocol so that I could pass this information back and call the appropriate pickers. So what I decided is on iPad, I wasn't going to dismiss this until you chose an option. Previously, we would dismiss right away and show this sheet on the bottom left corner where the camera icon is, so down here. And I didn't want to do that because it's kind of context sensitive on iPad. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do that. So I decided to keep it here. And it's the same menu options. So if I choose the photo, it dismisses that and then brings this up. If we do that again, you'll see that if I do add photos, we take a photo. Here, it was doing a full screen, and I didn't want to do that, so I put it in a sheet. So I'm doing a modal popover, and I made it so you can't dismiss this. I really didn't want to accidentally dismiss. Like if you're trying to get the shot and you're like touching around the screen, you really don't want to dismiss. So in this situation, I decided if I'm holding the iPad or the iPhone, I don't want to accidentally dismiss. And so the only way to dismiss is to hit this cancel button that's right down here. So if I click on that cancel, that will dismiss. And then if we go to add photos, we can select from files. This again dismisses the popover and then presents it this way. Okay, so that is the bulk of what I did. I also updated this settings popover. Now, before it was a lot shorter, and so if I had this expressed in auto layout, I might be able to get that smaller, or I might be able to force a smaller size. But for right now, I'm not super concerned. Like, it's purely functional. And then next on the to-do list is that color, but I can't actually show that from here. So why don't we jump on over to, the other big thing. I fixed a ton of compiler warnings on not only popovers, but on animations. So the animation that when you drag this around and then throw it, it will sometimes give a random rotation. Now, this isn't physics-based, but it was the best that we could do at the time. Potentially, I could integrate some of the more physics-based animations to make this feel more realistic. We sort of just pick a random thing based on when you throw it. I tried to get it a little bit better, but we didn't have all these new physics-based animations. So that's that. And then if you zoom in, there's an animation when it ends and snaps back. And if you go too small, it will animate back. So I had to fix all of these different animations throughout the application to use the new API, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And what else was I going to say about this? Oh, when you hit the play button, there's more animations. So present, sit and look pretty, and then it will dismiss and sort of send that off screen. So that's kind of the automatic layout. If you tap to hide, that stuff goes away and you just see the photos and it just sort of cycles through the content. So that is PhotoTable in its current state. This is probably something that I can submit to the App Store. So I'm probably going to make a video of me submitting it to the App Store, going through that process to see if I can get it on the store. I've already filled out a ton of the content. They rejected me because it was crashing when you were using the camera button. So the take photo button was crashing. I fixed that. I don't really need to fix all the other things. I want to fix them. Some of the things are non-functional on iPad that I probably should fix, but unless Apple's testing super thoroughly, they might not see some of that stuff. So I might be able to get it on the App Store in its current state, or at least prove that I fixed all of the main issues. So it's kind of a balance of is this good enough for the App Store, or is there more work to do? And I need sort of a check-in on that to see if there's more work that I really need to focus on, or if something's super important, I should probably prioritize that to get this on the App Store than some of these smaller layout issues. Okay, so that is that. I'll hit cancel. Was there anything else to show? Oh, I didn't really talk about it, but this add photos button was the first bit of Swift UI code that I added to the application. So I just created a brand new UI table view cell. I wasn't using any auto layout in here. So I just went in, and if we switch the filter, we can see this is the add photo cell. I went in, I created a delegate protocol so that I could call these different methods from the buttons. Then I set up the button in Swift. I added my layout constraints just to make it fill. I am using it might be under supporting files. No, images. This is my second thing in my asset catalog, because this all predates asset catalogs. I am doing slicing here, and you get to this menu from either the overview or slicing. Apple changed the way you get into it. So this is a quick little button I created in Sketch that I then sliced and made it so that it's resizable. So that's what it looks like. It's got rounded corners. I just did that quick and dirty so that I could then throw it in here as a background image. And then if you use the system type here, you'll get this automatic behavior that Apple provides. If I bring that back up, it does this sort of fade out animation. So you'll see that there. So that's kind of cool. First bit of auto layout integrated, first bit of Swift code integrated. That meant that I think I should have a bridging header. So there's a bridging header here. I'm actually not exposing any of the Swift stuff to Objective-C with this, or Objective-C to Swift. It was just a standalone thing, so I didn't need to include anything here. All right, so without any more discussion, that's current state of PhotoTable. I'll give you an update in the next, actually, I probably should show this on iPhone. So some of these screens are a little bit different. So let's take a look at that over here. Albums. You can switch albums. All of this was sort of updated. I did notice one more thing to fix is that the new picker is a totally different size. So I did watch the video on this last week and I was like, oh, that's something cool. Ideally, I'd put that in here, which makes me really think I just need to redo this whole UI in Swift UI so I can take advantage of all this stuff and not need any of this crazy old code that's deprecated. Yeah. So that is working pretty well. If we just go back, like we already did all that and that's just there. So it's pretty good. I'm really happy with some of these pop-up button menus. I think they work really well. And so let's take a look at the coding and I'll walk through what went well, what didn't go well, and sort of talk through some of that. All right, so it's time for the speed coding session. I'm going to speed this up 3,000%, which means it's going to go quick. I'll take some pauses, talk about things as I need to, but let's get started. And if you like this format, hit the like button. If you want to see something different, if you want to see more tutorials, just let me know in the comments down below. And thanks for watching. Let's dig in. I'm going to hit play. All right, so here I am reapproaching how I was trying to get this add photos button to work on this edit menu that's over on the right-hand side of the iPhone. So that's that cogwheel. I ended up changing that back to the edit title because it just felt like it sounded better and it didn't clash with the app settings cog that I have in the menu up at the top right corner that you see on the far side. So I guess that's on that side, or no, it's right above me. So let's look at what I'm doing. I am going to add a new class, and this is my first Swift class that I've added to this project. This has been an Objective-C project. So I'm going in, I'm adding a Swift file, I'm making an art asset for a stretchable button. I'm just using my super easy blue color and setting up auto layout constraints, trying to figure out how to get this into that view. Just refreshing my mind on like what's required to get this to show up. I see the button, but I have to like customize it. I put the wrong image as a foreground image rather than a background image. So I had to sort of rejigger that a little bit. And then I made a test app to figure out how I could get this pop-up button. So just sort of seeing what that would look like. And then I used that to help me write this code so that I can do this popover. All right, so I needed a delegate as a way to send this message back because we're in a album settings screen, but I got to send the message back to my coffee table view controller that is managing all the photos. So it needs to know if it needs to add photos or remove photos. So I had to add some plumbing for that. This is what I had to rethink because the existing design wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And there's been some new design patterns on iPad and I wanted to take advantage of some of that. So some of those patterns are these popover buttons. And so you can sort of see that pops up. Here's me testing it. One of the other things that you have to keep in mind is when you're working on an app like this, you're going to run into crashes. They're going to behave differently on iPhone and iPad. So here I'm writing specialized code for iPad up at the top here, as well as for iPhone. So iPhone, I am doing a push. On iPad, I am doing a present, which is doing a modal popover using the new sheets and stuff like that. So when you hit add photos and you click on one of those pop-up buttons, I need to then dismiss this on iPad so that I can present a new screen. You can't do both, and that's what one of these crashes was about. So this is about, it's already presenting a navigation control. You can't present the PH picker, which is the PhotoKit picker. So I had to go in and fix that. So then this is sort of me trying to figure out how do I write a completion because I need to be able to then execute something after it dismisses. And so I add the completion so that I can then call the appropriate UI to display because I can't display it right away. I have to wait until the animation finishes to display the new picker interface. So I'm back to testing it. And then this is when I start to decide maybe I just need to replace all of these UI popovers with the new UIView controller presentation logic, because all of that came out after this code was written. And so you can see I've got tons of warnings. I'm up to 323. Something crashed. I don't know what it was. I just documented it. And then I decided maybe it's time to start learning how to replace some of these animation APIs. And so I start looking at how I'm using the animation, trying to investigate that. I document the crash in my notes over here on the right. And then I'm back to finishing up the picker so that I can present it properly and sort of just playing with it, cleaning up that code, just making sure everything is working. So it's just sort of connecting everything. And now I'm going to do a commit. And then after this commit, I'm going to start tackling all of these warnings that you're seeing on the screen. So I've got all of these popovers. These are all deprecated. So the UI popover controller is deprecated. And so I work my way from the album, the image, the setting, the music, and the log. So some of these aren't even in the app anymore. I had already taken those out, or I'm going to take those out in this video. And these are the only three that were somewhat functional, and I wanted to get rid of them. So that's what you're going to see me doing here. So let's keep going. And as I make these changes, I'm going to have a little bit of regressions on the UI because we were fixing the size to a certain size, but it was actually a narrower size. Newer iPhones are wider, and so the standard size for popovers is actually a little bit wider on iPad. So you're going to see that as I work through these. Now, this is a sort of a transformation of like, what code do I need? What code don't I need? How do I write this logic? Just trying to go through that process, figuring out the sizing, playing around with that. Sometimes you see the sizing. So over here, you were seeing me testing that and just making sure it works. Now, as you work on iPad, you can break things on iPhone. And as I'm doing this for the albums view settings, I do break something so that it stops working properly on iPhone. And I didn't realize that. And so then I had to go back and fix that later on in this video. So right now, what am I doing? I'm rewriting. So this is the album table view controller. So this is on the top left. So I don't know if we can, how fast we can go. But this is me sort of working through. Let's see if we can get a demo of what this will look like. All right, so this is the updated code, but this introduced, I think, a problem. Oh, not yet, not yet. There's so many warnings and things I was fixing. It's hard to keep track of all of this. Getting rid of the music popover. Didn't need that anymore. Got rid of the console there. Didn't need that anymore. So basically, I delete the variable, which then gives me a bunch of errors that I can go in and fix. And so if you're ever refactoring code or trying to take something back to where you want it to go, getting rid of the variable declarations is going to help you a lot so that you can then find all of the spots where it was used. I do search for things a lot, so I'll search for the keyword just to make sure that no one else is calling it, because in Objective-C, you can have issues where you can remove stuff and you won't have a compiler error. You'll have just a warning. And since I have 200 plus warnings, I'm not going to see those warnings that, oh, this method isn't implemented. So then it will just crash at runtime. So that's part of the thing that I'm trying to avoid. Prepping my commits, just trying to commit as I'm working on these different things so that if I need to go back to something, I can revert back. As I'm doing this, what you're going to see is that I am keeping a list of what I've done, what is still to do. This is a lot easier than just making Jira tickets, because you're going to spend all that time making Jira tickets. If you're working on your own projects or an app, or you're doing a hackathon, being able to just have a list of to do and done is so satisfying. So here you can see I removed this show settings popover. I still have some things to fix. I might prioritize some and put like low priority or high priority, or just reorder them so that I know what to work on. And let's just keep going. All right, so I'm updating the gear button in the bottom to just be back to an edit. I just like that better. It just made more sense to me. But then I changed the title to be edit out or album settings, I think, just because in the back menu, it looked a little bit weird to see edit. So I did make that change. Here's just removing a lot of dead code for fix popover sizes. This is where when I change the size, you're now seeing that the images do not fill out the edit panel completely. All right, and so this is kind of wrapping up some of the progress, thinking about some of the features that I work on, making those commits. So I'm just writing as I'm going and then testing the application, doing these commits, committing just the relevant code. Then I was like, oh, how does this UI menu work that Apple's telling me I need to adopt? I'm not quite ready to adopt it. It's not breaking right now. I have had crashing bugs in the past, but I think Apple fixed those or changed them with the different iOS versions. So it's not crashing anymore. So I was just looking at that code, grabbing some snippets in case I did want to fix that. But then I got distracted with the animation APIs. All of these animation APIs, the warnings were driving me nuts. I just couldn't see past them. I'm at 242 warnings after fixing all of those popover warnings. So we went from 300 and something down to 242. And I decided, okay, now's the time to try and fix one of these. Once I fixed one of the warnings, then I was like, oh, I know how to do this. This is not that hard. I can go in and I can fix these other ones. So let's take a look at one of these if I get to another one right here. Okay, so if I back up a little bit, this is what we're going to see the warning is about. So this is kind of a throwaway method. I didn't really need this, but it's still in my code, arranging grid layout. I have it so that I can throw all the images that are on the table into a grid layout just to sort of see them as a different presentation. I did have a menu option for this, but I took it out of the app, so it's not connected to anything. But I was just going through my list. I might want to use this again. I might not, and updating. So begin animations and commit animations. These are two deprecated methods. And then there's all this setup stuff. So Apple introduced a block API that does a lot of this. So original iPhone development, you didn't have all these nice things. Then they introduced blocks. I don't know if that was Objective-C 2.0, but then they started adding all these new APIs to support blocks, which are just like closures in Swift. So here, if we just go through this a little bit, this is me figuring out, okay, this is the chunk of code and this is what it needs to turn into. So I just did that as a reference point. So I had something to think about as I'm working on this. And then I think we jumped too far. So here, there's the only thing that is animating is this image view transform. So I'm transforming it to a new angle, which is whatever this angle is. Okay, so that's what I want to transform. I think that's removing some of the rotation, and then we're committing that. So if we go forward, and can I step? Oh, so fast. Okay, so this is the new API, and you can see the durations passed in, delays passed in, the type of animation is passed in. So I copied that over, and this is the only chunk of animating code. Now, if I had a completion handler, then I would pass that in, but for this one, I did not. All right, so that is how that works. Let's continue. See if I can get, I'm gonna have to, do I have to hit escape? Why did it stop? Okay, QuickTime stopped, decided it wanted to stop playing the video. Let's select something, click off. Okay, QuickTime's totally busted. Let's go back in, open recent. And jump back. I don't remember where I was. Am I in the right video? Yeah. we'll just pick up here. Fixing more pop-up controllers. Did we already see all this? Okay, so this is me trying to figure out the animation delegates. So there's a couple spots. Here's an example. This is the shrink and remove the current Polaroid. So when I animate off, we begin animation, we set the delegate, and here we actually are doing a did stop selector. So this just means that in the did stop selector, I need to call this function in the completion handler. And so that's what I'm going to do on this refactor. So let's go ahead and run through that. And I do it so quick, it's like already cleaned up. Here's removing the Polaroid from the table. Again, super quick, just cleaning all that up. All right, a lot of dead code, still some more animations. I'm always searching for things. So like if I'm calling something, I just need to make sure I know that I've got all the instances. Once I do that, I make my commit and I try to commit just the things that I need to change. Then I wanted to update one of my dependencies, which is the MBProgressHUD. I had this last probably pulled from like 2011, 2012. And I wanted to just update it because there were some warnings. So I just got the latest and I just had it included as source. So I just copied it in, replaced the old one. And then there were some warnings about some rotation stuff. So I ended up playing around with that, seeing if I could fix that up. So I went from 0.4 to 1.2. And then I commented on the open source project because I just wanted to add some notes based on what I was seeing, added some more to-dos as I'm working on things, which I do need to reprioritize. And then what are we cleaning up now? So now I'm testing the albums. I ran into a bug where it wasn't switching albums, and then I wanted to see the picker. It wasn't changing sizes it wasn't changing colors properly. And so that's where I found that I have a color. So I tried changing the background color. So anytime you have an issue with a view controller, changing the view's background color, changing a sub-view's background color allows you to sort of see if you can fix it. Neither of these worked. So I ended up finding the XIB files. That's these interface builder files. And I had one for iPhone, one for iPad. They both had a color set to white. So I just switched from being white to the default, which is a transparent color. So it's a clear color. So doing that fixed the issue that I was running into where the modal pop-up was behaving weird. Okay, so here you can see now I have a black background with a white here. Before it was a white background. And I just didn't like that. On dark mode, I didn't like it. And I checked out Apple's apps and they don't have any color up here. It's just black in the Files app. So I was just sort of comparing that to see what they did. The other thing I took out is I don't want this on Mac. I'm still on the fence for Apple Vision. I've never tested it, so I don't know how that works. But I don't want to launch with it, so I'll probably remove that as well. But I was just trying to limit the amount of changes that I actually need to do because a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I don't really have to do, but it was just for my own sanity because I'm like, I got to fix some of these warnings. So you can see we're down to 170 warnings, which is huge. And you can see all the stuff that I accomplished. Then I discovered that whole date picker thing had changed. And I watched a video earlier today about some of those pickers. So I knew about that and just sort of working through these different issues. I also deleted the asset library code. I don't know when that was. I don't know if I did it super quick. But the asset library was an old library I used to get access to the photos, but then PhotoKit replaced that so I could delete like 7 or 8 different files. All right, I was running into an issue with the HUD, like dismissing. So I tried adding some logic to see if I could help with that. It was related to creating a new album. It was displaying something weird. So then I just commented on the open source project again. I looked to see if there's any other warnings or issues related to what I was running to. I couldn't find anything. I tried one potential PR, but it didn't fix the issue that I was running into, which was something about displaying the HUD off screen. So you're covered, but I'm still displaying it. And it's still staying in the view hierarchy when you come back, and it just animates off and it looks weird. So I couldn't figure that out. So I just moved on because it wasn't important. This is helpful. So here I wanted to see what it was like if I could do an ordered picker. So because I'm doing a slideshow, I wanted to be able to not necessarily do the default selection behavior, which just allows you to like drag your finger and select a ton of things. I wanted to be ordered so you could be intentional about which photo am I going to add. And so I added that support for PhotoKit. Potentially I could do that for the file picker, but I haven't looked into that. So that's probably something I could add to my to-do list that keeps on growing. So that's just one line of code. And then I committed that, tested it, made sure it worked. Though I don't think I showed it so that we could see it. And that is it. So that is the app as it stands. And let's exit this. So if I just show off that picker experience, let's just open this up. Choose a photo. I showed this earlier, but that one line of code allows me to pick any of these photos. So let's go for this one, and let's do a funny running photo. We'll add those to the table, and now we see those. And then since this is the row album, we can go in and we can manage this. So its selection is on by default. I can go in and I can get rid of all these non-row photos by tapping on them and hitting delete, and we're going to see them fade out. And now we're back to just row photos. So that's row. Thanks for watching. If this was useful or you learned something, or if it was helpful to sort of just see how a developer works in Xcode on iPhone, on iPad, give this a like, and you can subscribe to get updates for more videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.